Hey guys, we are done with the stores, we are done with the brands. Now let's get on with the rest of the things which is needed, which is more of the product lines which is pending, and then the products with its categories and the stock keeping units, which also need to be designed along with stock keeping. So these are the things still pending. So let's get on with creating the products lines to start with. So for that, I'm going to create. The product line sections. So for that, I already have the commands available. I'm just gonna maybe execute those. So for creation, we're gonna do a model creation right now to start with, along with all the dependencies. So for that, I'm gonna start with creating the product line model and its related dependencies, like the model itself, the migration, the model, the migration, the controller, the factory, and the seeder. And we will only expose the API endpoints, or at least the API functions which are needed. So this is going to create the product line table along with all the dependencies. So let's do that. So that's created. So let's go to the corresponding sections and see whether things got created or not. So we have the product line factory created, no implementation yet, and then we have the product line table created. Then you have the product line seeder also created, and the main part is the creation of the controller, which again is also created, I guess. So it's also available. So no implementations again, it just exposes all the API functions which is needed. So now whatever we have to do is to add the endpoint, or at least the route needed. So I'm going to expose that through the same structure, but then after the brands, right now we have the product line, so that needs to be added. So I'm just going to say brand and then the product lines. So that's going to give us the endpoints needed. So if you do PHP artisan API routes, you're going to see the new routes being added as resources. So you can see the branch, product lines, and then product lines, everything is available. Index, store, show, update, and destroy. These are the functions which it's going to use within the view controller. So let's go to our view controller and see whether those are available or not. So index, store, show, update, and destroy, all the functions are there. So let's get started with migrating this table right now. Even before that, we also need one more dependency created between the brand and the product line. So for that, we need to create one more migration. I'm going to again reuse the migration creation part. So this is it looks something like this: PHP artisan make migration. I'm going to create the brand product line dependency. So that's the table product brand product line is the pivot table I'm creating, so that the dependencies between these two tables can be mapped. So that's the one I create that. So that's also getting created over here. And now the next part is to add the relevant fields needed for product line, and then we do a migrate. So for that, I'm going to directly use my existing implementation, because anyway we have done it long enough in the previous implementation. So I'm going to just grab some of those things needed. So along with the ID and the timestamps, I need the product line name as well as the details of the product line. So those two things I've added, and then I'm limiting it to 30 characters, and it should be unique. So that's only thing I'm adding here. So that's also done. And also add the dependency between the brand and the product lines. So for that, let's also, I'm going to again capture whatever is needed even there, and maybe I can explain what is needed. So this is the dependency. So I have the table foreign key association to the brand ID. Through the brand's ID is having a mapping to the mapping in this table through the brand ID as the foreign key. So it is having an ID which is going to get mapped with this brand ID. Also, whenever there is a cascade update happens, it's going to do that. But I'm going to restrict a delete of let's say this entry from this table, because if let's say there is a brand already existing, if I'm trying to at least delete this dependent mapping, then I'm going to restrict that, because if there are any product lines available for the brand, then I'm not going to let the brand to be deleted and make this an orphan record. That's only reason I'm going to restrict the delete part, but at least I might be okay to update it. On the dependency side, on the foreign key, on the product lines, it's going to have a mapping using the foreign key product line ID to the product lines table, and then I'm gonna let it update or delete if there is an update happening. So that I'm not limiting, because I should be allowed to delete product lines if there is a dependency not existing. And the child ones, whenever we create, let's say now the products, there I'll have a dependency. So whenever we try to, let's say, delete the product, if there is a product line associated, that's fine. But then let's say if I try to delete a product line which has products available, then I'm not going to let that happen. I might restrict it there. So these are the dependencies I'm adding right now. So this is my table. Now I can really do seeding. So maybe let me do that, or not seeding, but at least a migration. So I already have the code for that. So I'm going to do a PHP artisan migrate fresh seed. That means it is going to drop all the tables and recreate everything and then seed the data. So I'm going to do that. So my database is already there. I was testing it with my implementations currently. So it's going to delete all of that and reseed everything. So you can see there are some more tables which I had created while doing the implementation for before this tutorial. I was recording this tutorial episode. So I'm going to do a fresh seeding and it's successful. So you're going to see some of the tables getting removed right now. So this is the new migration, and it has created the brand product line table as well as the product lines table. No entries there because I need to still create the seeders for that. And you can also see the older ones, like the brands are created, brand store association, everything is there. So this part is done, my creation is done. Let's now go to the product line factory and create the two fields needed there, which is the name of the product line, which I'm gonna do a faker again. I think I do a unique identifier, and then just going to use some word for that. So I'm just going to use word. I guess that should be enough. Is that the right one? It's always good to validate with whatever I have already done. Unique and word is what I had done. And then there is one more called a details part, where I'm just going to create a paragraph for that. So paragraph, so that should, or maybe a text of length 60, that is also fine. So because I might be limiting it to 60 or something, so I'm gonna limit it to 60 characters so that I don't get exceptions on the database side. And that's pretty much what I need for the product line factory. And then if I need to do a migration, I can do that by going to the seeder and then creating the product line, and then I use the factory which I had created, maybe create 5 entries or maybe 4, I don't know. So, and then I also associate attach the dependency as attached, I guess that's how, or is it attach? It's been a while. I had not been programming on PHP now. Like I took a break for some of the work at my work, so where I was programming more on .NET, and then I'm come back. So syntax might look and feel a little different right now, but I'm back again. Random. I'm just gonna attach a random brand. Out of all the brands, I will pick something random so that I can associate the dependency with product line. That's what I'm doing here, and then I can just go ahead and create this, and that's it. And then maybe I can create brand all Okay, maybe I can loop through and create more entries. Maybe I can have 5 entries and then keep this within this, so that it's going to pick up random ones and then create those the product lines needed. So this is the attach, which is going to, right now maybe it will throw an exception because there is no dependency which I have added in product line or on brand. So let's do that. You can see really that it's going to throw exceptions because this is not going to execute. Even before that, I need to go to the database seeder and associate product line seeder class, and then let's do. So I think you're going to see some exceptions because bad method exception, because branch does not exist. It is trying to attach to something which is not existing. That's the reason. So we need to create all of that. So go to this. Even before doing that, let's create the dependency on the table. Let me grab everything which is needed. So first is the table name. So product line is going to be protected table product lines, and then I can have the fillable, which is the other part when you actually will do the implementation in your view controller. This will be needed. So otherwise I think seeder is going to ignore the fillables anyways because it's more for testing. Name is going to be these are the two fields which are going to be used for filling details. So two things, those are the two fillable fields which you can allow. Then I can also have a function. Okay, func. Okay, I don't remember again. Lost touch fung, I think. Yep. So I can have the branch association here, where it is going to have a always I used to miss this return, so it used to always give a problem. Belongs to many, so it's a end-to-end relationship. When we do a pivot table, that's how it works. So you can always associate the dependency using belongs to many. So class brand is going to have an association through the pivot table also. So that's how you also need to mention the pivot table. Brand category is their pivot table. So if you want to see that category, so if you want to see that, this is the table. The brand, where did I, okay, I guess this is not brand category but brand product. That's what we had created. So you can see that this is more of a dependency of the branch to the product. You need to have the product line, so that's a dependency. And we can also define how we want to see the pivot as. So I can always say as brands. So it's going to return the pivot is not going to be named as pivot, but it'll be named as brands. So that's pretty much the one side of it. If I, let's say, go now to brands, it only has a stores dependency. I can also have the the product lines dependency added. Again, it can be this dot return belongs to many. Again, the reverse dependency through the product line class, and then it's again mapped against the same table, brand product line. So you can always say brand product line. That's it. So this should ideally solve the issue of whatever we were trying to do, where it was throwing an exception. Let's try rerunning. Now it's created, so that seeding would have happened. Let's go and check. So you can see those seeding has happened where brand is associated with the product line, and even you can see that the product lines would have gotten created. So where is my product line? I don't see. Okay, this is my product line. So all the product lines are also created. These are my product lines, and then it has an association with different brands, like brand ID 5 has this now. So we have something to work with right now. We have some product lines created. So if I go back to my the view controller which is created, I can always start with the index path. So for the index, just like we had in this case, you had a store ID. We might have to pass the store ID as well as the brand ID, two things. So I'm going to pass that store ID $brand ID. So two parameters which I'm going to accept, and then I'm going to see whether the brand is existing or not. That's the first step. So because you have to protect this resource from anybody else using other than the store owner. So already there is a middleware which checks for the store ID, so we don't need to do any more check on store ID. But then again, let's say if I don't query it through the stores, then again I might give access to someone else who might try to access some other brand which is associated with some other store. So that's the only reason I like to check this brand through the stores. That's where we are going to look through the relationships which we have set right now. So it's very easy. Eloquent makes it simple. So we are going to do that. So I'm going to say store, and I am going to do a where in. I think it's called where in. Product line warehouse. So it's going to be using the query, and it's going to query through the relationship. So we know that okay, we need to do it on the brand, not on store. We don't need the store. So brand has a relationship. We know it is called through a relationship to stores. Through this belongs to many. So we can use that, and then we can use that to say stores, and then we can write a function to accept a query. $query, and then we can say use the parameters which is passed. So one of the parameters which we might definitely need is the store ID, and that's going to return the brand. Not yet, we need to still do a find on store ID on the brand ID. So that will be the last step. So this should allow us to get the store, and then I can do a query on where I'm just gonna say store ID. So that's a foreign key relationship in the pivot table, because we are always looking through the pivot table. If you are having to write this query, it's going to be a little complicated, but then because Eloquent manages most of the things for you, it looks very simple. But then database query is going to be a little you need to have inner queries one after the other. So if brand is existing, so this is more like a query on this is more of a query on to get all the brands. So I guess there is one more thing which we can do. We can maybe directly query on product line, because we are going to get all the product lines. So that's more of a get query. So some things has to change here. So I'm going to just say, instead of this find, I'm going to say a get, which is actually getting all the product lines. So this remains. Instead, one more thing which we have to do here is we have to query through brands, and I'll tell you what it is, and then through stores. So what is this brands? This is nothing but this relationship which we created called brands on a product line. So that belongs to many brand, but then again there is an inner query within brand called stores, and that is actually querying on the store. So what did we really do here? All that we did is like we are querying on product lines through brands and then through stores. So you need to put a dot, and then you can query through that. So and then we already have passed store ID over here. We can also pass the brand ID, and then we can maybe make it 2 lines of query. You can also do a query dot where and then one more where, but you can use sequentially also you can do, and then you can just say brand ID is equal to the brand ID which was passed. So that's the next step. So this is really going to get you all the product lines, and then you can just say product lines is empty or not. So if it's empty, product lines, if it's empty, I'm just gonna throw new not found exception, HTTP exception, not found HTTP exception, and then pass the message saying product lines does not exist for brand. That's it. That's my exception thrown, and then I can just return. For the time being, before I transform, I just try to see whether it's working or not, and then I return the product line. So let me start my server, PHP artisan serve. That's running it on 127 this, which is already there here for me. I was already testing this. I'm gonna do a query on it, and it says user is not logged in. So let's start with that. I'm going to log in, and this user is not existing. So let's check for some user who's logged in. I think 21 is the store owner. I'm going to pick that user and then use him to log in. That's returning me a token, and let's save that at the stores API level. I created a variable here. I'm going to use that variable now. I'm going to replace. Then close this, come back, and then let's try querying again. Now it should allow me, and it is returning stores 3, brands 2, all the product lines which are available. So these are the different product lines I had created. We can always verify it with this one. So users 21 is having store ID 3, and if I go to the brand store ID 3 has so many brands, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, store ID 3. I'm just passing. So who's the user here? Logged in user is 21. He has a store 3, and then I go to, okay, he also has the store 2 as well. That's a reason. So if you look at it, even he has all of the stores as his right now. 2 and 3 are his. So anything that you try to query, you're going to get a result. So 1, 2, 3. So that's a reason. Store ID 3, brand ID 2, even 3. It's going to return as something. And then I realize I have not changed this controller here, which is causing all mayhem right now. So it should be product line controller. That could be the reason. Let's start. So yep, I was just testing something. Let me just change. Come back to where it was earlier. Okay, so it was product ID, brand ID, and everything. So now let's check this. Product line does not belong to this brand. This looks promising because maybe store ID 3 has brand 2, store ID 3. Let's go back. Store ID 3 has brand 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So these should all work. 4 product ID, store ID 3, product line does not. Okay, maybe there are no product lines existing. So which are the brands for which it is existing? It is 5, 5, 6. So maybe let's check that. That works. So this looks promising. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is if I go to my product line, 5 has 1, 2, 3, 4, which makes sense. Now if I can also look for 8, that should also return, or is it? Yep, that is also there. 8 is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. perfect and 12 as well, I guess. Yep, so this is working. So I was confused there, but that's only because I thought the query is wrong, horribly wrong, but then it was okay. I was pointing to a different controller. So now the next part is to create the transformer. The idea behind transformer, if you are not aware, is to transform your data in a format which is not directly a dump from the database, but if you want to really modify the parameters and only send across whatever is needed for the front end, then that's what the purpose is all about. Product line transformer, PHP, maybe let me change everything needed. Product line transformer, here it should be product line. Even here, if you're including a brand here instead of the store, so that's my include. Earlier I was using the brand one, I'm modifying, that's the reason I made the change from store to brand, because that's what we are more looking at. So product line changes, ID, name, details, these are the three things which we were interested in. But then product line is having brands and not stores, so we'll just respond with the first store available for this brand. And then this also should be modified, it should be product this should be brand transformer. That's also done. So that's my include. And what else is needed? This is done, this is done. Let's say if you, like I was talking about, if you also need the created date something, you can even do that. Let's say you can just pick up the date from the date timestamp and then just respond back created at. So I'm not going to do that. Let's say if you need all of this for updated date, if you need all of this data for sorting or something, use that. So I'm just going to show you why transformer is needed. Updated at. So that's also done. So these two parameters will also be returned when we will use the transformer on this product line controller. So instead of returning this, I'm going to return $this a response, and I'm going to return a collection. And then pass this product lines, and then pass the transformer as well. New product line transformer. Enough, I guess. This should give us the response in the way we wanted. Earlier it was this, it was directly dumping whatever was coming from database. Instead we are going to modify it where it's going to now transform it into a representation which is more transform, where it is giving us the created it, updated it. You can also transform this data which is sending. You can maybe send only the date part in a representation format, or you can also split across the time part as well. So that's the flexibility at least the transformer is giving you. So that's done. Now let's go back to the view controller and do the same bit of code I'm going to grab and then use it for sending a single response. Maybe collapse this part. So that's going to happen in this side, where I'm going to pass for showing. I need a store ID. Then I need the brand ID, and as well as the ID, which is the product line ID. So 3 parameters I'm accepting. And then instead of this, I'm going to call a find $ID so that I just get the single item as response. I'm also going to say this as product line, and I don't miss is empty. Instead, better I use the not. If that's not existing, then product line does not exist for the store. That's the response. And again, this is going to be more or less the same. Instead of the collection, I'm going to pass an item, and one more parameter change which I'm going to do is to also pass the brand information along with the response. Because if you look at this response, it's not sending any brand information, but we are just sending because it's a list, it does not make sense. So I'm just sending all of the product lines available for this specific brand number ID 8. But what is that 8 we can now pass when a single item is queried upon, let's say. So for that, I'm gonna transform again this one and include that default includes there. So this is more again dynamic. Set default includes, passes an array, and then I'm just gonna say brand. So this is what we had created when we did, let's say, the transformation. Include brand, this is the one I'm including there now. So you can see you just need to pass the brand, and you don't need that include part. So you just say brand and it's going to return. So let's try this, because we already have the endpoint available. So if I just say 5 over here, it should just give me 5 along with the brand information. Boom. Yep. So it's working. This 5 with the brand. Let's say if you do a 6 as well, it's going to give you a 6 with the brand information. 7 brand is more or less the same. So if you want a different brand, maybe try out a 17. Is that even a store? Which is 17 is not. So 8, maybe that's the only thing available. I think that's because 17 is with the brand ID 6. Yeah, so it's giving Armani. So that's also working. Now let's go and do the creation part. Let's say if you want to create a brand under your store, let's do that. So pieces of information are more or less the same. I'm gonna grab some of the information already which is there. One is the validation part, which we had been doing in each and every part of this tutorial. Before we started, I'm gonna do the validator without using up much of your time. So validator is going to pick up all the requests and validate for the name and details for specific things like it. These are the 2 required fields, which is going to be string, and it needs a minimum character of 3 for name, and maybe we can even include this 3 for this minimum. For even description, maybe description can be 15 or something. It depends upon however you want to design your system. And then if there is an error, if some of this, at least 2 of this are missing, I can always respond back, okay, this is not available. So that's the first step. And then post that, it's all about querying for this is going to be creating a product line under a brand. So for that, I'm gonna bring in this piece of code which we had used in, I think, the brand controller, where we are querying for a brand, or at least fetching a brand. I'm going to use this piece of code, and then I'm going to use this over here to product line controller creation. I'm going to do a brand fetch. For that, I need to pass a couple of things along with the request. I need the store ID to be passed from the front end as well as the brand ID. So all I'm trying to do is to see whether this brand is existing for this store. So that's a query, because we also need to make sure that we are not creating a product line under somebody else's brand. So that's the reason I'm still using the store ID. I'm consuming that. I'm trying to see whether the store already we know that this store is going to belong to the same user, because we are doing that middleware validation. If that is there, then I'm just going to do an inner query and trying to see whether this brand ID belongs to this user or not. If it is the brand does not exist or does not belong to the user, it can be any message. So I'm just saying brand is with this user itself. If it is passing, then I go and create the product line for this user. So I just say $product line is equal to, I have this brand, $brand, and then I'm just gonna create it through the product line. This is the beauty of Laravel, where you don't need to create it separately. You can create it through the relationship. So it is going to create my product line. It is going to also associate the product line with the brand within the pivot table. Those 2 things will happen together. And if there is any failure, it's going to fail through an exception. So that's the beauty of this part. So I'm just going to create, and then I can just pass these 2 parameters needed, which are name, so you already have the request.name, and and you can pass the details as well. So details, which is again within the request.details. So these two parameters I pass, it's going to create the brand, and then I can respond in the normal way where I used to create a response object, $response. Then it's again an array. It's going to accept a message. Okay, there is an ending needed here, message, which is going to be product line creation was successful. And then I can maybe pass the ID also of the product line which is created. ID, I just pass the product line ID which is created. So that's it, two parameters passed, and then I can use the return response, $response of, or it can be response of Eloquent, or response of Dingo, I guess, or it's even part of Laravel framework, JSON, and then I do a response with 201, which is for creation. So that's it. So this is going to create the product line for us. It's a simple validation. If validation succeeds, then I do a check on the brand. If the brand is available, I do if available, I go with the next step and then create the product line through the brand's relationship. So this should ideally create my brand. So if I go and now create, I already have the post created here. I had tried it out. This is going to be my post, product lines passing name and details. If let's say I miss out on details, it's going to throw error saying details is a required field. Similarly, if you miss out on name, it's also going to return an error. So this is going to create, if I go now create brand does not exist, that means that validation is now failing. So what is the brand which is available with me? I have the brand ID 5 and my store ID is I think my store ID is 3. So 3 and the brand ID is 5, I guess. Brand store ID 3, brand ID 5, brand ID 6 all belongs to the same user. So I can just go ahead and create product line created successfully. If I do a query now, so this is 3 and 5. I should not miss this query. Okay, that's giving me this whatever I created right now, which is the MacBooks best laptops on this planet. So that's done. Now comes the put part where I'm going to update this whatever I created, like I called it laptops. Maybe I need to change it to MacBooks, and then maybe I called it MacBooks, the name the product line as MacBooks, and maybe change it to this. So for that, let's go back and then create the update side. So again, for update, let's do the same stuff like whatever we did for create. For that, I'm gonna grab these two again, and it's also going to have the third part as well, which is the product line ID. So I can also have the dollar ID. So this is my update part, and I can grab this bit of information where whatever is the product line I need to update, I can always check whether that is existing or not. That's a check. So I'm doing a check on product line through the brands and again through the stores to see whether this product line is existing. So I'm using this query for that, and if it is existing, I will go to the next step. If not, I say product line does not exist for this brand. So then if that exists, then I can readily start the other validations which is needed. So again, we had done it for the similar things in the last episodes where we do a validation check. Maybe I can just grab one piece of it and then use that to create the other one. So I'm just going to check for the name if it is because this is more of a validation, so I need to check whether this name is passed. If it is not passed, it's fine, I can skip that part. If details is passed, again I can check whether details is available or not. If not, I will do no update at all. But at least if these informations are coming, then I should make sure that those are validated before I allow the update. So product line, if name is coming through, I do this. Similarly, if I can check for the details, if that is also coming through, I do a validation. It was more 325 and max is 256. That was the validation. If it's anything lesser or it does not fall in between this, I won't allow the update to happen. So I can just say details is updation is possible if this validation is also passing. So I guess we are all good with this. Yes. And if that is true, then I'll do maybe I can keep it within try catch block. Try. And then instead of this throwable, I might just use the HTTP exception and then throw. Where did I come? And then I throw that. And this is where I'm gonna do the save part. Product line save. So I just need to check whether this is already this is dirty or not before I store. So that is one check we can always do. If unnecessary, we don't need to save it. If product line is dirty, if it is dirty, we can go ahead and save it. And then once saved, we can just say we can just respond with the message. I'm gonna just use that, copy paste. So I do a response based on if it is already saved. So I'm just saying it's saved. I can now respond back with 200. So let's say if it is not dirty, maybe then I'll just return. I can have even the return here because it can execute this flow, and if there is nothing to update, then I can just say the same response JSON. I can just pass. Let's drop this response. I'll just say message, nothing to update, and that's it. So this should take care of that. So let's do that bit right now. I think anyway there is a validation. If with this validation, if nothing is being passed, I think it will just say nothing to update or something. So I can just remove this. Okay, this is more a response. I delete this, try to update. I think it's already will say that product line does not exist for this brand. So I know for 3, 5 exists, and whatever brand that we had created in the last step was having an ID 21. So maybe that's what I'm going to update here. 21. Let's see what it says. Nothing to update. That means, yep, whatever was needed. So maybe I'll only update the title to start with. So this should be allowed and the update should happen. Product line updated successfully. We can always go and check it. The product line stable. MacBook Pro is updated, but it still says best laptop. So maybe I can always do one more update. Again, I can pass both of it. That's also fine. It's going to anyway update. So I think now if you look at it, it's updated with best MacBook Pro and best MacBook Pro, and I think that's not dirty. Again, it would have saved on both of it. So that's done. So again if you do a save, I think if not dirty, if it is okay, anyway it's going to return. So that's fine. This is also done. So update is working fine. Now the last bit is the delete part, where we are going to delete the same 21 which we had created and see whether it works or not. So delete is very simple code again. So we are allowed to just grab the same things which we did here. We need to see whether this product line is existing or not, and then if it is existing, we'll go ahead and delete. So we again need to pass all those parameters which we passed even here: store ID, brand ID, and ID. So those are the 3 parameters needed to validate and then delete. So store ID, store id, brand id, find. If it is not existing, I just say this, otherwise I'm gonna delete it. So I'm gonna just say try delete this and do an HTTP exception, and I can throw it if something goes wrong. And then I can include the delete part over here, which is product line dot delete. That's it. And then I can respond back with that delete message. Maybe I'm just gonna do a copy paste of that message as well. Delete product line deleted successfully. Boom. Deleted successfully. It should allow me to delete. So let's try doing that. So this is my number 21. Product line does not exist for the brand. So again, brand number, that's good validation. It is coming under 5. So now it should allow me. Product line deleted. If I go ahead and refresh this, you should see that it's deleted. Even like I was talking about, 21 is removed even from the dependent or the pivot table as well. So both of the places it's gone. So even here, if you try to query now, it's gone. So all of the endpoints are taken care right now. This is what I wanted to do in this episode. It's going to be a repetition of things in the coming episode, but then the relationships are going to be a little more complicated, and then we are also introducing some parallel dependencies like the categories for product, which is going to be interesting. So that's what is coming up in the next episode. So this was more of a product line. I wanted to take up one by one for each section. So that we are done with this now, where we can add now product lines and then now it's the time to associate products for each product line, and then also implement the categories part, where you can differentiate the category of the product with using this one. And then we'll go ahead and do the SKUs. So those are coming up pretty soon enough. Stay subscribed, like this if you already have watched it and you liked it, and also share if possible, so that it gets more visibility and helps my channel. And that's pretty much what I wanted to convey in this episode. Hope to see you soon in the next one. Until then, it's bye from me.